and terrible jaws. I have terrible teeth and terrible teeth.
Good mixing, mix. Another bubble. Wow. Bubble. Mix.
Come on, guys. Big elephant. And big brown bear.
And what happened?
And a big brown bear.
Tell Molly.
Big brown mouse.
Wow, that was a big jump.
Ooh. Shall we do something? Oh, we could splash. Put our hand in. We're mixing.
So good afternoon, and thank you all for coming along. It's great to have everybody here this afternoon. Hopefully you'll all take something positive and useful away from this session. My name is Stefan Allsebrook, and I'm part of Frog, which is the company behind the technology that supports the 50 Things project. So we develop and we look after the app, among other things. Now, I'm going to do a minimum of talking because we've got some fantastic talks to get through this afternoon, and that's what you've come to see, and that's where the real value will be. So throughout this session, we'll be hearing about the 50 Things project from people who work with it and deliver it, from the parents, the practitioners, and the local authorities. So we'll be getting a real range of perspectives. Now, we expect the webinar to last around an hour or so, and we'll be taking questions at the end. Now, there's a chat facility, as you've already found, most of you. If you haven't, have a look for it. It's already live and kicking. And please use this throughout the sessions to engage with each other, to network. That's what these webinars are all about, and there's real power in this. But also to ask questions of us, the 50 Things team. There's a number of people from the 50 Things team lurking in the chat room this afternoon. We'll be able to answer any questions you have, or certainly put them onto the right people. Now, we've got 4 talks lined up for you this afternoon. Christian Bunting will kick off. Christian is the founder and the driving force behind the 50 Things project. We'll be moving on to Carrie Priestley, who's going to give us a parent's perspective, and indeed a classroom practitioner's perspective as well. She wears 2 hats with 50 Things. Andrea Richardson will be giving us a local authority perspective around how 50 Things impacts on families, special educational needs, and early years. And then Angie Gaughan will be telling us some of the great things they've been doing in Wakefield, the local authority there, and the drivers behind their 50 Things implementation.
Hi, I'm Chris Bunting. I'm director of an organisation called Bradford Birth to 19, and we're the, I suppose, the driving force behind 50 Things to Do Before You're 5. I'm going to try to do a broad outline of 50 Things right now, and thank you for bearing with us in terms of the live stream technology this afternoon. 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 is an initiative that's been born in Bradford, but now it's reaching out across the whole of the country. It's based at St Edmund's Nursery School. St Edmund's Nursery School is an outstanding nursery school in the Manningham and Girlington area of central Bradford, and areas of exceptionally high socioeconomic deprivation. The core purpose of 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 is it's an offer to parents which is aimed at giving children the best start in life that they can possibly have. It's directed at parents and at the home learning environment, and we're trying to make a difference to all the children in the communities that we're working. But we have a particular and profound interest in disadvantaged children. The core purpose of 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 is to drive up early learning, health outcomes, and prepare children well for starting primary school, but equally give them access to a really wonderful first 5 years in their life. It is 50 Things to Do Before You're 5. It is an app, and I'll share some of these resources with you later on. An app, a website, social media campaign, and some print-ready resources. The practitioner pack that Andrea was showing is this, where there are each one of the 50 things has a different card. We give those to practitioners, but also schools are liking them as an offer for pupil premium, children in receipt of pupil premium. 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 started out its journey at St Edmund's Nursery School, where we work with a couple of hundred children each year. But over the last 2.5 years, we've expanded rapidly, reaching out to 36,000 children in Bradford, and from there, reaching out to all of West Yorkshire. In fact, growing so rapidly that we've had a reach out to 10% now of the English under 5 population. 335,000 children in local authority areas that are within 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 areas. We just got good news yesterday from a couple of local authorities who are going to be joining us, and that will take us up to 1 in 8 children in England who are part of the 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 approach. We've grown rapidly, and we are making a particular impact now with families and providing support for them who are struggling with their roles as home educators during the time of COVID. 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 enables local authorities and schools and settings to meet their statutory responsibility to provide home learning during the time of the COVID pandemic. Okay, so we've managed to get here because it's been a really good, simple, straightforward idea. 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 is accessible for all parents. It's low cost, no cost, things you can do at home, things that you can do in your locality, and things that are going to be fun but lead to learning at the same time. COVID is changing the way that we need to approach kind of early learning. Things are different now, but the values and the ideas that underpin 50 Things, with the materials that we've got, each one of those 50 things is as valid now as it's always been. We're giving parents the confidence and the tools to do the things that they probably would have done in any case. And the ideas that are behind 50 Things, all those ideas came from parents in the first place. There are, in fact, about 250 things squeezed into the 50 Things offer, and they are a really wide-ranging, holistic offer of exciting activities. They are aligned to the early years foundation stage curriculum. They are appropriate for children of all ranges of abilities. They've been through a special educational needs audit and are meant to be as accessible as we can make them. They're expected to have impacts. In particular, our starting point on this one was to make impacts around speech and language outcomes. Speech and language outcomes for children. We were knocked over by the evidence that there is out there that children from disadvantaged backgrounds are entering school language poor, and we wanted to do something about it. And the ideas behind 50 Things are very straightforward. Go out with your parents and families as a young child, go and explore the world, go down to your local parks, to your local museums, into the woods, wherever it is, into the back garden, or have fun at home. And parents, involve yourself in a serve and return conversation with your child. A serve and return conversation will drive forward language, it will drive forward confidence, and it will give children those self-regulations, metacognition skills that they need to be effective young learners. That being said, it's not just about learning. It's not just about parental confidence. We're expecting to see, and we're starting to see, some really significant improvements in terms of early health outcomes. In Bradford, we are particularly concerned around childhood obesity, early onset diabetes, coronary and respiratory health problems, and also around early infant and childhood mental health problems. And all of those things have been made worse because of the COVID pandemic. So it's a particularly valuable offer at the moment. The evidence on the impact that we're having is promising. The evidence of engagement is overwhelming. Parents love 50 Things. They love the app. They love the materials that are around them. And we do not find it a difficult sell at all to parents. They readily want to participate in the 50 Things activities and support it locally with really exciting kind of like activities. We've just concluded our the first national puddle jumping Olympics in Bradford. Little low cost, no cost activities to get kids to go and play outside. Some parents think that if you go and play outside during winter, you'll catch a cold. We want to encourage physical activity. We want to make it as fun as you possibly can. What does the local authority get? That you get from us your own app. And the app here, I'm going to try this. It's not always so straightforward to share to share something, an app on screen, but I'm going to try and work with that. That's on a tablet. To me, it seems fairly clear. But those are the 50 Things. In the 50 Things areas, you are guided through various things to do, stories to read, songs to sing, activities to engage in, words to use, information for special needs, information about how to do these things in your locality, in your area. So if you adopt 50 Things, what you get is your own app and your own print-ready resources, your own further print-ready resources. This is the back of the fridge door, kitchen door poster, and a wide range of materials. But they've got your children in them, your museums, your parks, your forests and local wild spaces, and pictures of your children. So they're recognizing that this app is for them. It's speaking to them. It's an opportunity for them in their locality. Inside the app, there's some powerful technology that Andrea was talking about. When you sign into the app, you put in your postcode. You can elect not to. And we don't harvest who you are. We don't take that data down there. But the data set that's gathered in from the app allows a local authority to be able to see what impact is being had, who is downloading the app, who's doing what, or which postcodes are doing what, and you can compare those with your socioeconomic data sets that you hold locally. So that gives you a really powerful set of data to be able to judge impact. There's a lot of power in there. You can use that to influence your policy rollout, the things that you do. You may find a white working class estate, for example, in one area of your local authority that they never go to the museum, or there's no evidence that they're going to the museum. So maybe the museum need to go there. Maybe they need to go and reach out to that community. Locally, the coalitions, the stakeholders who are excited by 50 Things, of course they're their parents, of course they're the 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds who reach up and say, I want to go and do that today, mum and dad. But they're also your public health colleagues locally, the early years team, the local authority school standards team, and also colleagues who are interested in joining in with the initiative because of civic responsibility, because of community integration, or because of local tourism. And we get a coalition of colleagues locally who support these kinds of initiatives. What you can do is launch this activity from commission to kind of like a launch. It can take as little as 4 weeks. In Sheffield, that's all it took us. Some local authority areas took a longer time to be able to launch 50 Things. But some of them were able to launch rapidly because they needed to put something in place at the time of coronavirus. There are practically things you need to get sorted. Things that can delay 50 Things launch are things around permissions for photographs, but we can find a way to get that launch for you as soon as you're able. Here at 50 Things, we've got the team ready to work with you. Frog have got the technical experts able to support you with the launch, and we're ready and willing to have conversations. We do this as a social enterprise. We do it because of our commitment to young children and to families. We do it because we think it's the right thing to do. We're really happy to be able to have those conversations with you after today. And we've got a team ready to respond to you.
So I'm Andrea Richardson. As some of you probably who are listening will know, I finished working in Leeds at the end of last year. After about 26 years of working in early years, family support, some SEND work, a lot of parent partnership work, and various other things as well, actually, by the end of my time there. And as Stefan started to talk about 2.5 years ago, we chose in Leeds to invest in the 50 Things to Do Before You're 5 app. And I'm going to talk about how Leeds, as a large northern local authority, did that. But first of all, I just wanted to reflect on why now, why you might want to invest time and money at what is a really unusual moment in anybody's mind, isn't it? And obviously every place is different. So I've literally just finished working at Leeds, but every single local authority is different. Every health authority is different. Every school is different. You know, the whole world is looking at a slightly different perspective. But what I would like to do is just kind of reflect on what we actually know and probably what we share together. And that is that we know that lots of our young children have had a disrupted early education experience over the last 12 months. It's been different. It's been different. Many, definitely many, will have experienced a level of upset, a level of bereavement. Lots will be experiencing greater poverty and deprivation, and we can be clear on that. And some children will be more neglected and at risk of harm than before the pandemic started. And I think those are all kind of given wherever you are, whichever agency you're working in. But also don't forget, some children, and actually a lot of children, will have been able to spend more lovely, good quality time with parents and carers and their families in a way that actually they might not have done if we hadn't been in the middle of a pandemic. So just with that context, I'm going to move into, you know, the fact that having a good app that's free to parents, was co-produced with parents and with children, of course, and with outstanding early years educators at St Edmund's. You know, all those things together feel that this might potentially be a good way to go, actually. So we have to recognise, I think, as local authorities, you will be focusing your resources on your most vulnerable children at this time. You're going to have to, there is no escaping from that. Now isn't the time of plenty. It isn't time where people will have lots of money or lots of resources. And I think we're all very realistic in that. So with that context, for me, interestingly, at this time, unpredicted, you know, very, very unusual, having a good app that gives accessible quality ideas for parents, but also for early educators, for social workers, for health visitors, for support workers, something that gives you an aspect of a shared conversation around positive activities, nice things to do, free things to do, cheap things to do even. You know, that thing that gives you an idea of, have you thought about doing this? Because it would be really nice. Could actually be quite a helpful thing at this moment in time. So I'm going to tell you about Leeds. In 2015, so a few years ago now, we set up a strategic partnership, very usual for local authorities, let's be honest, led by public health and involving children's services, CCG, public health, voluntary sector groups, so all agencies who were involved in supporting families with young children, educating families with young children. They set out a best start strategy. Now, the best start strategy was primarily focused on pre-birth up to 2 years, as many authorities did at the time. It was a strategy that was needs and population focused. So it was about Leeds, it was about the families of Leeds, what their needs were. And it was very much looking at a place-based community type response, because our experience as a local authority is, you know, you engage with your community and you bring forward that motivation and engagement. And you've got your families at the heart of what you're trying to do. So obviously, local authority talk, we jointly commissioned and further developed a whole range of good restorative programs and interventions that we felt kind of held the family and child at the heart. Things that you will all be familiar with for sure. Breastfeeding support, baby cafes, Henry, PBB, preparation birth beyond, baby steps, incredible babies. There's a whole host of things that we kind of layered up together and delivered citywide. And this is the important bit, we invested time and resource into something called Best Beginnings, which has a baby buddy app. Now, some of you may be familiar with this. If you're not, go and have a look at it. It's a pre-postnatal app recommended by health, and it's used in a lot of authorities now. Now, by using that in Leeds for those mums and families, we had some really encouraging results around uptake of using an app and the value of an app. And we were really keen, once we'd seen that, with, you know, lots of work around it, what we wanted to do was extend the reach of that. So all those families that had kind of signed into that, extend the reach of that into preschool development and experiences, to kind of take those families through on a pathway. Now, Leeds, we researched into what was available. We considered developing our own app. You know, we all think it must be dead easy to devise an app. I'm sure Stefan sat at the other end of this going, you know, it's not, Andrea, no, it's not. So we came across St Edmunds and Frog, who were working together on what seemed to be on something that seemed to be just really what we were looking for. Now, financially, at that time, so 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, we shared the cost between myself as head of early years and our school improvement kind of service. So we spread the cost between us. We didn't get real money from public health or CCG, but what we did get was kind of support in kind, and obviously they'd invested in other things, so we invested in this. And everybody was signed up to the kind of support and delivery. So, cut a long story short, many of you here will be familiar with the ins and outs of local authorities, getting permission, communication strategies, political support, all those things, all those agreements were required and they were secured. Now, in terms of taking on the app and making it your own, which is one of the really strong selling points, I think, of this, we had a fab graduate trainee. So somebody who'd just come into work in Leeds, was enthusiastic, was young, pardon me, and knew a lot about IT, and they just kind of Leedsified the app for us, made it something that felt very familiar for our families. So I think my timings are right, they might be slightly out. I think by November 2019, we'd done a lot of the work, a lot of the groundwork, a lot of awareness raising with professionals, and we launched the app at our baby week, because annually we have a week in the city that celebrates the birth of babies. And I know a lot of other cities are developing that as well. So we launched it in 2019 Baby Week. And then we literally layered the app across all our existing systems. Now, I know, because I worked in a local authority, I can hear people going, we haven't got the capacity to do that. Don't you know how busy we are? We're in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, of course you are. And what we did in Leeds 2.5 years ago, and actually I'll come on to talk a little bit more about what we did last year, is just kind of use this, which is a tool to work with the systems that we already had in place. So as I said, we launched the app through Baby Week. That was with professionals and parents. One of the key learning from working with the Baby Buddy app was having professionals who understood and were using the tool, as it were. So Baby Week was helpful in getting professionals to understand what it was we were looking at. And that's midwives, that's health visitors, that's social workers, that was schools, parents, obviously, but a lot of people who were working with those families. Our child-friendly Leeds team, because we had one of those in Leeds, rare for us, began tweeting messages about the app. So that kind of weekly tweeting out to whoever cares to listen. We had an early years improvement team, so a team of consultants who worked with our private, well, all of our providers from childminders through to private, through to school, early years settings. So they shared the app across all of those settings. And actually some of the schools within that were part of a funded pilot. I think about 25 primary schools were already working on that and kind of properly modelling that up and what it might look like in schools. Leeds Local Authority has a lot of children's centres still, 57 children's centres, and the Little Owls nurseries, 29 local authority run nurseries. So obviously staff in there were made aware, had staff meetings about the app and just knew about it. There's a whole list of things which, you know, for yourselves, if you are thinking about this, you go, do you know what, we could use that to work with this that we already have going. And if anybody any of you want to talk to me about that, I'm more than happy to answer questions here or even afterwards. Another nice thing, we use the 50 Things card pack, which if Christian had got on, he would have showed you. It's a lovely little product which has cards, which are really popular actually with families, and we gave that away with our baby box promotion. So we were giving away baby boxes for about 2 years. Things like we work really closely with health visitors in the children's centres in Leeds, and the health visitors put bookmarks with the 50 Things app in their red book, so every red book had some kind of notification. And libraries, in the last probably 18 months, libraries really came on board with this, and it was just beginning to kind of roll. And then, you know, there we were in March 2020. Lockdown came suddenly. The whole world took a step back. Interestingly, and in some ways, this is probably key for you today. That's where the 50 Things app really came into its own for me. What we had was a whole load of professionals who were aware of it, some parents who were starting to use it, social workers who'd been trained in maybe using the app, and suddenly looking for new and different ways to communicate with parents. Now, what we found was the materials within the app, within the product, were perfect actually for online education systems, online communications. So things like whichever communication or online system you're using with parents. My own nurseries use Tapestry, and they started to put the ideas and the activities on a weekly message out to parents, and that was kind of coming back with comments back about what children had done. So perfect for that kind of online early education. Children's Centre started to use it in the Facebook pages, so literally activity of the week with maybe a member of staff reading a nice story as part of the resource. And in fact, we had some really fantastic examples of staff coming through and doing things like signed activities or doing songs and things, some really creative things that were really very engaging for children and for the families as well. One of the big ones actually for Leeds in July and August, as local authorities, you'll know the DWP data about eligible 2-year-olds for early education comes through with regularity, and we're all under pressure. Middle of a pandemic, not the best time to provide free places for all eligible 2-year-olds. And clearly a lot of places for those young children were limited or even not available, or parents didn't want to take them up. So we actually used the 50 things. Our teacher team put together a pack, and the outreach workers from the children's centres delivered them to, and our list was like over 2,000 families were in receipt of that offer. So they actually took the materials, they put them into a pack, and they door knocked every one of those families and actually took them in, had a little bit of a conversation, obviously COVID safe, through a window over the doorstep. But they got quite a lot of traction through that, interestingly. And again, it's that shared communication, shared language across the city, across different professionals. In terms of impact, I mean, in some ways, in Leeds, we're still quite early in terms of analysing the impact for the city of Leeds. And what we know as local authorities is you're only as good as your data, really, aren't you? I would say Frog, and this is another real benefit from the app actually, over the last couple of years, Frog have been working to develop the analytics around the app, and actually it's pretty good now. So you've got some really kind of strong up-to-date analytics about who's using it, what your unique logins are, which activities families are using, postcode location on that. So what that gives you is obviously that fantastic data, which I know our public health people love, about who's using it, what are they using, and why are they using it. So you can start as a local authority to drill down into why have a lot of parents started to use the app in that area? Is it something that somebody is doing? Why are they not using it in that area? What can we do to enhance the work? What can we kind of learn from other areas or even other sectors? You know, different sectors of early education are getting more impact in the areas that we're working in. So there's a lot of ground still to cover on that to understand what it looks like. And I think Wakefield might be talking a little bit more about that. What I would say is obviously any app is dependent on your people. So nothing's a panacea, is it? You can't kind of pick something off the shelf and go, this is going to change the world. It's dependent on your people. You won't get the impact unless your people are signed up to it, unless you've got some kind of, whatever you call it, champions network or lead people or whatever. And it needs some kind of development to do that. But in terms of, I was just going to say, just in terms of take up, I remember I left Leeds at the end of last year, so we're quite early in terms of numbers. But in Leeds last year, we had, in October, I think we had about 3,500 families using the app. So that was in October. So the 3,500 families in Leeds is about 8% of the total under 5's population. So it's not huge, not yet, but it's there to be built on, and it gives you a really kind of practical scaffold for kind of enhancing that across the city.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Carrie, and I have two children, Amber who's just turned 8, and Ollie who's just turned 3. And I also work as a co-teacher in a school nursery setting as well with 3 and 4 year olds. I first became a 50 Things enthusiast and found out about the 50 Things whilst I was on maternity leave after just having Ollie. And I thought it was a fantastic free resource to use with ideas for the whole family. I was finding at the time as well that a a lot of the baby classes and the things I'd taken Amber to when she was a baby, they weren't available, or they weren't as varied, or they didn't work on the days that suited me when Ollie was a baby. And I think there would been a lot of budget cuts, funding cuts, and the children's centres in my local area, some of them had actually been closed as well. So I'm finding it really difficult to find things to go out and do with the new baby. So 50 Things definitely came along at the right time for us. And the thing that was great about it was that it was whole family ideas. So it wasn't just me taking the new baby to a class. Amber could be part of it as well. And the ideas on it they're so simple, they're so easy to use. And it just meant that I could spend quality time with Amber at the same time as having a new baby as well. I'm going to try and share my screen, but let's see how that works. It took me a while to get in because I just want to show some of the photos that I've got of Amber and Ollie as well. So I don't know if you can all see it. So I just want to talk a little bit about why 50 Things was important to me, really. So from working in early years as well as being a parent, I can see firsthand how social disadvantage can affect children's development. And I have a lot of children who come into my setting who haven't had a lot of early experiences in their life. And obviously with not being able to take Ollie to all these baby classes, I was really worried that Ollie wouldn't have as many early experiences as that I'd been able to share when Amber was a baby. I really love about the 50 Things on the app that you can have a look at the why section, or if you go into the activities, there's a section that tells you why you should be doing these activities. So there's a lot of things out there, a lot of different campaigns, a lot of different projects that tell you what you should be doing with your baby. You should be doing this, you should be doing that, but I don't think all of them necessarily say why. So if you didn't come from an educational background, and maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't, would you know that allowing your child to jump in the muddiest puddle that they could find, it's not just about them having fun, it's also helping them and encourage them to think in a scientific way, so thinking about the speed, the height, the depth. And that's what really stood out for me about the 50 Things. It fits in so naturally with the early years curriculum that I work in. And I think, although I was worried about Ollie not having as many of those early experiences that I'd been able to share with Amber, actually having the 50 Things resource to hand has probably increased it, because it's perfect for doing as a whole family. So it's not just mum and baby at a class. It can be done at any time of the day. And it's inclusive for all ages and stages of development, which is highlighted on the app as well. Or it can be adapted to be so. So although it is 50 Things to do before you're 5, Amber's now 8 and she's still an avid user of 50 Things to do before you're 5. So I hope you can see my screen because I've got some photographs here. So Amber was here. She was 5 at the time. Ollie was just a couple of weeks old. So it's the first time at the park on a roundabout. We've got the first time we went to the library together as a family sharing books, the first walk along the canal and hearing and feeding the ducks. And then there's the picture here in the snow. So I think this really highlights how the 50 Things can be adapted for children of all ages. So Amber is a 5-year-old here. She's had her experience of the snow by rolling in it, jumping in it, making snow angels, throwing snowballs, building a snowman. And Ollie, I don't think he was more than 2 weeks old here, so he was wrapped up nice and warm in the pram, but he still had that experience of the snow. He still felt the cold air on his cheek. He heard us talking about it, saw it falling from the sky when he was looking up. And obviously their experiences this time were very, very different, Amber being 5 and Ollie only a couple of weeks old. But I do think that the more children experience an activity, the deeper their understanding of it is. So obviously Ollie probably doesn't remember his first experience of snow here, but then a few weeks ago he was the one that was rolling snowballs, making snowmen and jumping around in it, which is appropriate for his age now. And he's had those experiences time and time again that help him to understand what snow is and what that means to him and what that experience is for him. And I do think as well that 50 Things has really helped Amber and Ollie to bond. There is a big age gap between them. There's 5 years between them. And obviously they bicker like all siblings do, but he has learned so much from his older sister, from the way she's taken 50 Things on board, to copying how she goes about doing a 50 Things activity, listening to what she's saying as she's doing it, playing alongside her, and just exploring the 50 Things together. And I do think that their shared experiences of using the 50 Things rather than having separate activities for both of them has really brought them close. And another thing that I really loved about the 50 Things was that it's localized to where children live. So coming from a professional perspective again, of working in early years, there's a lot of emphasis placed on how children understand the world that they live in and how they make sense of that. And that's what I think is great about the 50 Things concept. So for us, it's local to the area of Bradford. And I think that helping children make those links in their local area, seeing what their local area has to offer, what it looks like, really helps them with then their development in moving forward and understanding the world around them. If they don't understand the place that they live, how can we as adults and educators expect them to have a further understanding of the world? So I'm just going to move to my next slide about what's worked really well for us as family. So first of all, the app I find really, really beneficial. It's user friendly. All the activities are right there to hand when you open up the screen. And then I really love the memories section where you can save photographs that you've done during an experience. And Amber and Ollie really love to look back on those. And there's times like they look back on photos from when Ollie was a baby, so 3 years ago now, and they remember what they've done. They can talk about it. And again, I think that further deepens their understanding of whichever experience it was that they've chosen to look at. Another thing about the app where it breaks down the how and the why you should be doing each activity. That's always the thing I recommend to other parents, is to have a look at that part. Why are you doing this activity with your child? What's the benefit for them? How will it impact on their development? And I find the vocabulary section really useful as well, because it's so clearly broken down into the different ages and stages. So it suggests what kind of keywords you can use with a baby, then what you can use as your baby turns into a toddler and then moves towards becoming the age of 5. And I think I'm going to talk about as well, I don't know if you can see here in this top picture, there's a jar that Amber made. This is something that I use all the time. So she's put number 1 to 50 inside this jar. One for each of the 50 things, and it's a great tool for when, particularly now we're back in lockdown and we can feel a bit fed up and a bit down, a bit unmotivated. We want to do something but we're not quite sure what. We get Amber's jar out and we reach in, we pick a number out, and providing that we can do so with the new guidelines, we go ahead and we complete that activity as a whole family. And that's something that Amber's created that has nothing to do with me. She brings it along to all the 50 Things events that we do together. And I also use it in my setting as well. So it's a really useful tool for using with the children and the families there. They pick a number out, they take it away, and that's the activity that they go ahead and complete over the weekend. Sorry, I've lost my place. And it's really it's made us as adults, and me and my husband, have a new way of thinking about what we constitute to be a great day out, really. It's made us think more local, and we as adults have discovered things in Bradford that we never knew were there, really. We found an amazing wooden natural obstacle course in the middle of Heaton Woods that is a place that we probably would never have discovered without the 50 Things app, because we really took an interest in woodland wandering. So we looked on that part of the app, and there's a great link to find local woodland near you, and that Heaton Woods popped up. So we found many great places around Bradford, and it's really made us evaluate what we constitute to be a great day out. We spend much more quality time together because we're not spending long journeys in the car waiting to get somewhere. We spend less money. And yeah, I think it's just really made us have a new way of thinking what we want to do to be able to spend quality time together. And for us, sorry, I'm just trying to move my slide along. Oh, I moved too far, sorry. Lockdown, I really think for me personally, 50 Things really came into its own during the last lockdown and in the new one that we're in now. So I was busy trying to work from home full time, homeschool a 7-year-old, potty train a very reluctant to be potty trained 2-year-old, and it definitely wasn't easy. Trying to keep them both simultaneously entertained when there's such a big age gap between them was a challenge. And I found the 50 Things resource a lifeline, if I'm being honest. It was brilliant. We were never short of ideas that we could try time and time again. We became more creative with the ideas because we were repeating them over and over again. We were adapting them to suit Amber and Ollie. And for us, we actually used it as a tool for home learning. So yes, Amber had her maths and English and other lessons set, but more often than not, we followed the 50 Things for our home learning and lockdown journey. And I think we were all, as a whole family, learning new things, so not just the children. You can see in one of these pictures here was our travelling to Mexico day. So Amber and Ollie have face painted us on a Day of the Dead theme. We learnt lots of interesting facts about Mexico. So we were just being creative and thinking outside the box, doing things slightly different each time we completed an activity, and mostly having lots of fun. We tended to take the 50 Things outdoors, explored what was on our doorstep because we couldn't go far. And I think during the lockdown, it really hit home for me how much Ollie's speech and language development and understanding of his environment had come on. And I do think that is a hugely down to the 50 Things activities and the repetition and the time that we were able to spend doing these activities. So we were walking through the woods one day, and it was the same woods that we took our daily walk in every single day. And I mentioned the river, and Ollie looked up at me. He was 2 at the time, and he said, "Mummy, this is not a river. This is a stream. You've told me a stream is smaller than the river, and this runs into the river." And that came from a 2-year-old. So the repetition of the woodland wandering activity had the things he'd seen and heard in his environment, the things he'd heard us talk about in the environment had clearly sunk in for him. And I think that's the beauty of the 50 Things. Children learn more and more each time that they repeat an activity. So that's one thing I always recommend to anyone who looks at the 50 Things. And I always say, please don't use it as a checklist. And once you've done an activity, think you don't need to go back to it, because it's going back to it and it's that repetition that really supports children's development and communication skills. And I think during the lockdown, we would have been much worse off without this fabulous resource to hand. And whilst I'm so grateful for all the family time that we were able to share together, being creative and thinking outside the box on our own, it was a challenge, and it was great to have a bank of ideas readily available for us during that difficult time. I was going to talk a little bit about 50 Things as a professional, but I'm very aware of how close to my time limit I am. So if anyone does have any questions about how I implement 50 Things at my setting, then please ask them in the chat and we can follow up on that. But I just want to talk about what impact and benefits of the 50 Things has had for us as a family. So the most important thing is that it's fun, it's low cost. No matter how many times you repeat an activity, there's a new adventure, a new challenge each time. Personally, what we love is how much of the other 50 Things link so naturally together. So our favourite activity is woodland wandering, but it links in so naturally with things like water feature, building dens, home from home, trip trap over the bridge, mini beast and bug hunting. I could go on. It's amazing what experiences children can have just from completing one of the 50 Things activities. Sorry, I've lost my notes again. And I think as well, speaking from a parent's perspective and thinking about being in a parent's head, an adult's head, going outside and exploring the outdoors, it's not just great for the children. Yes, it's brilliant the children are learning, but it also has a positive impact on our mood. And I know that everyone's feeling very fed up and a bit trapped at the moment because we're back in a lockdown, and it's easy with the dark mornings, the dark nights. It's easy to get sucked into that trap of feeling unmotivated and not positive. And I definitely see the impact that getting outside into the woods, building dens, getting some fresh air, some exercise, and trying to complete as many 50 things as we can in that time, it does have a positive impact on not just Amber and Ollie, but on mine and my husband's mental well-being. We come back, we feel we've cleared our head, we feel much more positive, we come back more focused, motivated, and I definitely think that it's helped us as a whole family. It's not just for the children as well. The biggest impact for us by far has been Ollie's amazing speech and vocabulary and his understanding. Everyone who meets him has commented on it, and they can't believe that he's just turned 3. And I do genuinely feel that a huge part of that has been because we've been able to access the 50 things tool for him. He's had all these amazing experiences, which actually haven't cost very much money. They've included the whole family. We've had quality time as a family, and he's just gained so much experience from them, learning from his older sister, using the vocabulary section on the app, the why section on the app. It's so clearly broken down. And for us, you can see where you can take it next as well. So when he was at that toddler stage, I always looked at the next part and thought, okay, so he's understanding that now. Where can I take it next for him to help him develop further? And I just think it's amazing to have such a bank of ideas readily available rather than trying to think off the top of your head all the time. It's impossible. So it's great to have them there, and you can repeat them, you can change them, you can adapt them. And I recommend 50 things to anybody that I meet, anyone that I see. I could talk about it all day, but you're probably bored of hearing from me now, so I won't talk about it anymore. But I'm really pleased that the project's now getting national recognition, because it means that so many more families are going to benefit from just the simplicity, but the effective activities that 50 Things has got to offer. So I'm really pleased that it's gaining that recognition now. And I've just got a slide here with just a few tips. So like I've said, repeat the activities, have a new adventure each time. If you can, the jar of ideas that Amber set up was amazing. Getting in a child's perspective, because that, as Amber once told me, sometimes a grown-up's ideas are rubbish and boring. That was at an event that we were due to hold, and Amber just rubbished all my ideas and said that it was boring. She changed it all up, and it was much more engaging for the children and the families who took part. So if you do have a child to hand, definitely use their input and their perspective. Looking at the vocabulary and why section on the app, I've said that so many times now. That is the one thing that I always say to parents, and take the 50 things outdoors. That's other tips. I have left my Instagram on there as well if anyone does want to follow Amber and Ollie's 50 Things journey.
Hi, so I'm Angie. So why did Wakefield invest in 50 Things? Like many local authorities, we are working to improve our good level of development, and we know one of the key drivers of that is the communication, language, literacy pathway. So the earlier strategic board was established to carry out some key strategic initiatives, and they saw 50 Things as being one of the key drivers of that pathway, and therefore they gave the go-ahead for us to invest in it. In addition, in Wakefield we have some health concerns in terms of children's obesity levels and their health habits. We know if you have unhealthy habits when you're younger, that's likely to translate into adulthood. So the beauty of 50 Things is that it's so holistic. It touches upon arts, culture, education, health, life skills. So it can have an impact on all of these various statistics and support them to change and grow. So that was an indicator for us in Wakefield. Also, we looked at investing in a program, tool or app in terms of supporting our under fives to be more healthy, active and to develop. And we compared many of them, and 50 Things was always in the mix with that. So when COVID came along, it kind of got pushed to the front because we saw what a great home resource it was, and that it was accessible, it was adaptable, it was flexible. And one of our key objectives is for parents to have the knowledge and ideas and the confidence to support their children and continue their development. So 50 Things became 50 Things got the go-ahead in May 2020. So in May 2020 we developed a steering group through the Arts, Culture and Leisure Service. This gave us a different perspective. Many of the other local authorities, I believe, are from an early years background. So in some ways it was great because we had a different perspective from them, but also we needed the expertise and the support of some people from early years areas. So we, during the time of development, I had many conversations with different partners in different services, and I developed a key partners list, which is the ones that you can see on the screen. Some of these have been involved from the start, some I've recently had conversations with. But these guys have been so useful in terms of their expertise, their suggestions, and then also using 50 Things within their services. So why am I talking about partners? Because partners for us in Wakefield have been a big driving force in the success we've had so far. We set a target of 1,200 downloads in the first year. In just under 4 months we reached that target, and we believe it's because we have such good partners involved in this project, combined with some really good social media and social marketing. With the partners, we feel it's really useful because they're able to give you a different perspective, a different approach. So, for example, all these approaches that you can see down the side, they're delivered through different services. So it might be the early years champions, which you see above, is that is engaging in the early years providers and getting them to embed 50 Things into their delivery. Be More Wakefield is looking at the assets that are featured in the app, for example Pugneys Country Park, and putting branding up at that park so people know that that park is associated with 50 Things. And then if you look at this purple section of partners over here, that's very much around the more targeted families, the more vulnerable families, and they've been able to engage with them in different ways, as opposed to a different service. So I think that is the beauty of 50 Things. It's open to interpretation to some extent, and the parks may use 50 Things differently to the schools. They may use it differently to the libraries and the museums, which is great. It gives that unique perspective. Also, we believe that having partners involved means that people trust in the app and the process a lot more. It kind of cuts out the middleman to some extent, because you gain their trust a lot quicker than what you would if the information may come from us in arts, culture, leisure. The reason we've got so many early years providers signed up as champions is because it's come from those teams that already work with them. So I think building that trust and rapport is important, and being able to reach out to those different markets. Also, with your various partners, you know, you're able to share the resources and different ideas to reach some of those targeted families. I've recently started having conversations with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and looking at how we can work together to reach families and give them information at the same time rather than dribs and drabs. And then also the beauties of networking. Once you've got some partners that understand 50 things, they know about it, they go to meetings, they're part of other networks, and they can talk about it and let people know how great it is and how it can be embedded within their service. So for me, when I have come to have a conversation with a new service or a new partner, and I said, oh, so have you heard of 50 things? Most of the time they say, yeah, I have, so told me about it. So that's great. It just makes your job a whole lot easier. And then I think one of the key things in terms of partner is sustainability, and this is where it really drives the success of your app. We see now that 50 things are becoming embedded in some of these services, whether that's in terms of appraisals, delivery plans, curriculums, and it shows that it's becoming useful and it's becoming an asset to Wakefield. So when it gets to the point that that contract needs renewing, we have evidence there to say, actually, people are really using this and it's embedded within their delivery and within their service. So that's partners. They've been very important to us. They've done a lot of work, and you know they should take a lot of kudos for the success we've had so far. So I just want to touch upon data. If you see this snapshot here, this is the overview data that you receive with your postcodes, with all the activity numbers across the top all the way up to A50. And it tells you whether they've completed them, they've viewed it, or they've not done anything with it at the moment. Now, this has been really useful, this data, because you can also download the the top 10 viewed activities, the top 10 completed activities, and then obviously the bottom ones as well. And same with the postcodes. For us, we've been able to use this data to target some of our social media as to what postcode areas we may do some paid socials, or which activities we're going to choose because they're the most popular or they're the least popular, so we want to generate more interest. We've also used the postcodes to correlate with the number of early years champions that we have signed up. So we can see if we've got 5 nurseries signed up in one postcode area, has that got a lot of downloads? And it just gives us an indication as to whether that campaign's working. And then for us, seeing the number of the number of activities completed, that for us is going to support our plans for our next phase, which is the momentum phase of getting people to actually use their app. And obviously that all gives a baseline and it will give indicators as to how the campaigns and initiatives within that phase are working. So from the postcodes, my manager's been able to do this magic spreadsheet, which gives us an indication about the quintiles and the deciles that the downloads are falling into. And this is extremely useful, especially when we're going to the children's board, giving them reports, senior management and partners, because it tells us what families are downloading the app to some extent and what deprivation levels. So we want to obviously be getting the app out to the most vulnerable, those that really need it, that need that support. So we've been able to use this data and have a look and see if we need to adapt as plans so we can get to the most targeted. So that's it from me. Just my top tips would be key partners. If you can get their buy-in, it will really make your job a whole lot easier. And you know that I'd say many key partners or many partners will see the use of 50 things, just because it is so holistic. There's something for everybody in there. I haven't had a chance to touch upon social marketing, social media, but this has been a massive driving force for us. And because we had somebody on board from day one, it's really, really helped with how we've been. Don't run before you can walk, and especially at the start. We try to allocate periods of campaigns so then we can go back and analyse what's worked and what hasn't. Obviously, as you build up, then that's a little bit more difficult to do because the information's everywhere. But at the start, I would definitely slow it down a little bit. And use the data to inform your plans, as I've just spoke about. Thank you very much.
We are very interested in speaking to organisations about sponsorship, providing that organisation's values and principles fit in with ours. But we'd certainly like to have conversations about that.
I was just going to pick up the question there about how we do this. Really, it's a conversation with us. We will naturally reach out to all the people who've registered for the webinar today, and it's a matter of a conversation with us. We need to talk about what you need, what your lead-in times are going to be, how quickly you need to launch, and we're very happy to have those conversations. But really, it's directly getting in contact with us. We'll reach out to you. Practically, there's the process of getting your app ready and your website and your printed materials and all the other stuff is something that we'll support you with, but it's one set of actions.
We've got very large areas and we have a tab that provides local links. So if you've got natural divisions within your county, you can list all the museums, say in north, south, east, west, whatever the natural geographical split is. And rolling out in children's centres, how did you reach hard to reach families? I will just challenge that label of hard to reach families, but families who haven't yet found a way to engage with us. We use enthusiasts in Bradford. So we've got a whole group of parents and some grandparents, and we try and match those enthusiasts to go out and talk in a peer-to-peer fashion with like-minded people.
Working with particular communities, the power of peer-to-peer is one that I would strongly recommend. But and working with some communities as a way of drawing them into the 50 Things offer by encouraging them to co-construct what the offer is, what the content of the app can be. They'll have some great ideas. In Sheffield, we work with the Roma families and some other families in a really powerful way, which made them help to break down some of the barriers that existed out there, which stopped them kind of like engaging with schools and with statutory services. So it's about how you reach out to them. But we've got plenty of case studies and plenty of expertise on that, which can help you with the reach that you want to. I know what local authorities want to do. They will want to provide a holistic offer, but want to target that offer at the communities that they want to have the most impact with.